Soccer players, you need to stop being afraid to eat. Not eating is why you finish slow, why you gas out in the second half, and why you never reach your full potential. You could have more strength, speed, and endurance if your diet actually matched what you're chasing and what you're putting out on the field. You can't build speed on an empty gas tank. If you don't know where you're going or what to eat to get there, then you need to listen to this video start to finish. You need to hear me out in terms of what you should be eating to match your goal. Because otherwise, you're going to start next season the same athlete you were yesterday. All right? So, let's start with key point number 1. First thing I want you guys to really understand, recognize, and think about is having a clear goal and a clear plan. If you don't know your goal, you are going to be wasting your off season. You can't eat right if you don't know what you're eating for. Off season only works if you know your goal. Maybe that's building muscle, maybe that's endurance, maybe that's leaning out, maybe it's, hey, I just want to be faster. Like, whatever your goal is, you need to have a clear goal, and your nutrition needs to match that goal. You don't just eat calories to solve all those problems. You don't just eat protein to solve all those problems. Each of those problems, each of those things that you want to work on have different requirements, have different things that you need to be focused on. And so this is where we really need to think about that. And this is where, like, one of my athletes, he wants to gain size, gain strength. He's a soccer player. He wants to gain size and gain strength. He wants to gain a little bit of weight. When we started working together, he was going hard on the protein. Lots of protein around meals or around workouts, a lot of protein, of course, at the meals, drinking the protein shakes, etc. But that wasn't helping him get stronger. That wasn't helping him get bigger, stronger, and faster because he had no energy in the tank. He was not getting enough carbs in to match his training load. And so when we started working together, we started upping his carb intake. That was the first thing we started doing, adding more at breakfast, adding more pre-workout, adding more post-workout, adding a little snack in later in the day. We were upping the ante because he's a very, very active player. Soccer players, you are an endurance athlete, which means you need carbohydrates and a lot of them. So make sure that you are addressing that. Make sure that you're not just focused on protein, but you're addressing the carbs too. Skipping carbs is basically skipping performance. You know, Protein will not help you without carbs. Protein without carbs is like Batman without Robin. They are better together. Batman is way more effective when he has Robin. And so you can't leave protein without its carbs. Now, let's talk about number 2. Let's get into the nutrition piece of it. I wanted to stress with you guys, you need to understand where you're going, because I hate to hear athletes just like not really know where they're going. You need to have a clear goal of where you're going. Otherwise, what are we doing? What are you doing? What are you doing to actually get better? So, number 2 though is carbs and hydration. You know, you are an endurance athlete, you want speed, you want energy, you want strength, you need carbs and hydration. A lot of athletes are scared of carbs. They think that carbs are bad for you. They think that, yeah, many athletes think carbs are bad for you, but carbs are what feed your engine. If you skip them, you cannot expect more speed, more endurance, or more strength. You need to address the carbohydrates if you expect to get stronger, get faster, and have more endurance. And so just to give you guys some examples here. So if you are pre-training, pre-workout, we need to have a snack. We should not be going from lunch all the way to after practice without any fuel in the tank. And so having something like Greek yogurt with bananas, toast with peanut butter, PB&Js, like different things like that to make sure that you are not just getting, yeah, sure, a little bit of protein, but you should be getting those carbohydrates as well. You should also be thinking about post-workout. So post training, yes, you need protein to help rebuild that muscle. But if you don't have enough carbs in the tank, if you don't have enough carbs going back in, you're not going to be able to refill that gas tank up, which means you're going to start using protein to refill that gas tank. It's not effective. It's obviously not going to help you build muscle. And so you need to make sure that you're getting carbohydrates to match your training load. And soccer players, you have a high training load. You run a lot, which means you need a lot more carbohydrates. Now, on that note, again, athletes, reminder, soccer players, in case you forgot, in case you did not hear this yet, you are an endurance athlete. Endurance athletes, endurance players need even more carbohydrates than, say, a baseball player. You need more of the pasta, the rices, the potatoes, the sweet potatoes, the whole wheat breads, the quinoa, the fruits, the smoothies, the sports drinks that have the sugar in it. You need all of those things because you are burning all of those things. You are using them. So we need to make sure that our carbohydrate intake is high as a soccer player. Number two, though, added onto that is hydration. A decent amount of you guys are decent at this, but I will say, I was walking by this field yesterday, these two fields that I'm at, and I realized I was observing the soccer players, and I saw some of them leaving the field. They were teenagers, probably 15, 16, and I saw a decent amount of them without a water bottle. Again, you guys just played 90 minutes, and you don't even have a water bottle with you? How do you expect to last through that whole game? How do you expect to properly recover? How do you expect to bounce back faster for the next game or the next day in general without the hydration? You guys need that water. And a lot of you guys, especially those who are playing all game, you guys are starters and you guys are in the game most of the game. You guys need electrolytes too. If you are sweating a lot, you need electrolytes to replace the electrolytes that you lost in that sweat. So make sure that you are getting the salts. That could be sure from a Gatorade, Powerade, and that kind of serves its purpose. It's okay. But even better if you get a liquid IV. Better than that, even better than a liquid IV is something like a drip drop or Scratch Labs, and that's Scratch with the K, by the way. Scratch Labs, they have similar electrolytes and carbohydrates to the Gatorades, but they don't have the food dyes, so they're better quality. They don't have things that might affect your attention span or your recovery, but they're more scratch based. And so you can find them online. You can look up Scratch Labs with the K. If you want a discount, just try things out. Type in Lemke, my last name, and you'll get a 20% discount too if you want to try that out too. But again, you guys need to stop playing tired. You guys need to stop crashing halfway through games. And if you want to do that, your nutrition needs to match what you are putting into your training and into your games. You guys play games year round. Sometimes you guys are playing multiple games. You need nutrition that matches that. Speaking of, if you guys actually want to hear a strategy of how to build that out, let's talk about it. Because 3 meals a day, which a lot of you guys are doing, like 3 meals, maybe a snack. 3 meals a day isn't enough for athletes. Eating 3 to 4 times a day is not enough for soccer players. So if you're serious about soccer, if you're serious about playing at the highest level possible, you need to eat every 2 to 3 hours, 5 to 6 times a day. So that is more than most of you guys are doing. You know, you guys should be thinking about 5 to 6 windows of eating a day. You guys need to be thinking about eating every 2 to 3 hours, particularly on training days. If you're on an off day and you're not really training, then sure, maybe 3 to 4 hours, but you should be eating regularly throughout the day. Especially because I know a lot of you soccer players, you do not like eating big meals. I get it. I'm the same way. I also eat as a non-athlete, somebody who trains, but not a true athlete. I eat 5 to 6 times a day because it feels better for me. I like smaller meals. You guys like smaller meals. So that means you need to be eating at least 5 to 6 times a day to make sure that you are keeping up nutrition wise for your training. If you want to get stronger, if you want to get faster, if you want to have more endurance, you need to be eating more often. Now, let's talk about a sample for that. Let's break this down what a day could look like. And there's a lot of different ways that this could look, but think about it this way. Breakfast, you got eggs and oatmeal, or you could do eggs, toast, and some fruit. Then between breakfast and lunch, I know a lot of you guys have at least a 4 to 5 hour gap between breakfast and lunch, which means you should be fitting in a snack between breakfast and lunch. So that could be trail mix, that could be protein smoothie, that could be a lot of things. What that is not though is applesauce or Gatorade or let's see, chips. Like, yes, I talked about carbs. Yes, we need those carbohydrates, but you don't just eat carbohydrates and that's all when you're just sitting around. When you were in the classroom, you should be doing more than just carbohydrates. And then lunch, chicken, rice, and veggies. That could be a burrito bowl. That could be literally just chicken, rice, and veggies. That could be a taco bowl. That could be a lot of different things. It doesn't just have to be the basic bodybuilder chicken, rice, and veggies. Like, it could look a lot more creative than that without taking a lot of work. And then you've got, again, you guys have a long gap oftentimes between lunch and post workout, and so you should be getting something in pre-training. Banana and PB&J. Again, carb focused. We want to fill that gas tank up for that workout. So carbs should be the emphasis. A little bit of protein there, maybe. That's about an hour out. Then post workout depends on your situation. So if you are getting done with practice after school and you are not eating dinner for an hour or more, you need to be getting something in post workout. So that could be, again, as simple as a sandwich. That could be a Cliff Bar. That could be, a protein bar with some fruit or something like. But the key here is carb focus as well. Yes, protein. Yes, at least 20 to 25 grams of protein, but you should be tripling or quadrupling that in carbohydrates. One thing I want to emphasize here on the post workout is your post workout should not sacrifice your dinner. That was kind of what was happening with one of my athletes is he was eating too big of a post workout snack that he was not able to eat dinner. That should not be happening. All we need to do is get a quick bar and get something in post workout. Doesn't have to be too crazy. That gets you some carbohydrates, that gets you some protein. And then if you're eating dinner 45 minutes later, great. You shouldn't stop yourself from doing that. And then after dinner, let's look at what your timing is. If you have, say you have dinner at 6 o'clock and you're not going to bed till 10. As an athlete, you could probably be eating at, maybe 8 o'clock, 8:30 or something. Again, doesn't have to be something big. It could be something as Greek yogurt with fruits. We don't want to go too crazy with it, but we want to get, again, some protein and some carbs. Let's limit the sugar though, because, simple sugars like literally like candy and stuff, because those things are going to impact your quality and quantity of sleep. So we want to get the protein and the carbs. Let's not be grabbing the sugary types of carbs. So you guys get the main point there is you should be eating more than 3 to 4 times a day. If you're only eating 3 to 4 times a day, you are not eating enough as an athlete. Now, I want to talk about number 4 here. So number 4 kind of summarizes a bit of what we talked about a little bit, but it also helps you guys really think about if you are doing any of these things, these are the first things you need to fix. And so here are the top mistakes soccer players make in their offseason. This is exactly why you are stuck and not reaching the next level of your performance. So, number 1, under eating carbs. Now, as I mentioned, eating more carbs does not mean eating applesauce and chips and candy and stuff in class. This means eating more carbohydrates at meals. So pasta, rices, whole wheat breads, things like that. But it also means eating more whole grains, whole carbs at your snacks. So whole fruits, back to the sandwiches, things like that. So you should be doing more of those, not the chips and the candy and the applesauce, especially when you're just sitting around. Applesauce is great. Applesauce is a tool. Applesauce could be used pre-practice for quick energy. You take it like 30 to 60 minutes before, and that gives you some quick carbohydrates. But if you're just sitting in class, you do not need those carbohydrates, those quick sugar carbohydrates, if you're just sitting around in class. So think about what you are doing and make sure that what you're putting in actually matches like what you're doing. If you're sitting in class, slow digesting carbs, combine those with the proteins, combine those with a little bit of fat. If you're prepping for pre-workout, more simple carb focused, more of the applesauces, bananas, oranges, etc. That's when you should be having those things. Mistake number 2 is skipping breakfast or thinking protein shake is breakfast. You're an endurance athlete. Skipping breakfast is a missed opportunity. You need lots of carbohydrates. You need lots of protein. You need lots of just nutrition in general. If you are skipping breakfast, that is a skipped opportunity to get better. You are essentially cutting your foot off right at the gate. You're cutting yourself short right off the top. It's going to make it very, very difficult for you to get enough nutrition, to get enough carbs, to get enough protein if you're skipping breakfast. So stop skipping breakfast. If you need easy breakfast ideas, reach out to me. Shoot me a message on Instagram. Easy thing that we can be doing. And I can give you guys a quick list of things of breakfast that don't require a lot of effort the morning that you're eating it. Things you can make ahead of time. Number 3 is believing clean eating is eating a bunch of salads. So I have a lot of soccer players that the reason why they are underfueling, the reason why they are not eating enough is really just because they're overemphasizing eating healthy or eating clean. I hate the term clean. Number one, we don't use that word because clean describes, cleaning your counter, not how clean your food is. Like, did you wash it? Like, I don't know what you mean by clean. Define that. So, first of all, we don't use clean. Second of all, a lot of you guys are like eating salads and eating all these really like lots of fruits and veggies, which is great. But it's not great if it means you are underfueling, if it means you're under eating. So, eating a lot of salads, eating a lot of veggies can mean eating less. And so how we overcome that is putting veggies in our smoothies, adding oils and dried fruit and fresh fruit and other things to our salads, to our veggies. Basically just finding any ways to add calories when we are doing those veggies. It's a lot easier to make sure you're eating enough and eating enough of the right things by doing that. So you can eat healthy and get enough calories in. And then number 4, final one, is winging it instead of having a plan. If you are winging your nutrition right now, you will never reach your full potential as an athlete. If you're just saying, oh yeah, I'm just going to eat more, or I'm just going to eat more protein, or I'm just like, oh, whatever, I'll do with it later. Like, yeah, no. First of all, you probably won't do it later. Second of all, you're going to be constantly running behind. You are going to be constantly falling short. You will never fully reach your potential when it comes to your strength, speed, and endurance, and just overall as an athlete if you are winging your nutrition. So stop winging it. Take it seriously. It doesn't have to be complicated. All of my athletes, when we work together, they actually find it's a lot easier than they thought. We just have to build a routine and build habits that work for you. Not every athlete's diet's going to look the same. But if you really want to showcase your abilities, if you really want to reach your full potential, if you want to play in college, if you want to play in the pros, then you need to match your nutrition, your effort into your nutrition, to the effort that you put into your training. You wouldn't drive to a showcase on an empty tank. So stop doing it to your body. Like, just take it seriously, one step at a time. Little changes can help you go a lot further. Now, Some actionable takeaways for you guys. I want to give you guys some specific tools here. Number one, write down your off-season goal. So if you want to get bigger and stronger this off-season, if you want to have more endurance, if you want more speed, if you want to lean out, whatever that is, write it down. Get really clear about it. Visualize it. Think about it. Imagine yourself already achieving that goal. And then let's take a step back and look at what are those steps that will get us there. So what is your end zone? What is your goal? What is the thing you're trying to reach? Imagine yourself there, and then take the steps back and look at what are the 3 things that are going to help me reach that goal. So think about that. And number 3 is commit to it. Commit to doing these things. Take these actions for at least 2 weeks. All of my athletes, when they come through my coaching program, every single one of them talks about having more energy and more strength within the first 2 weeks of doing it consistently. So if you can commit to that consistently, just for 2 weeks, you're going to see differences and you're going to be more motivated to keep going. Now, if you want a meal plan to support your off season, text meal plan to 253-470-2423. And I'm going to send you a sample layout of what that could look like, of how to eat, when you should be eating based on your training. But if you actually want to get faster, get stronger, and have more endurance and have more of a customized plan, we can talk about that too. If you guys are like, yeah, cool, sample meal plan, helpful, but I really want something that's going to work for me, or then message me meal plan, text me that, and we can talk about that too. So if you want the sample, great, I'll send it over to you. If you want a real plan, something personalized to you, again, we'll talk about that as well. But I want to remind you guys, keep showing up, keep committing, taking steps towards your nutrition, keep taking steps towards reaching your full potential. And as always, keep striving for greatness.